He was so just profound. So I first met him. I'd always heard of him. He was always famous growing up, and my teacher growing up had always told me about him. And of course I knew about him only playing music with one hand because of his right hand challenges. But when I was younger, I didn't appreciate that until I went through the experience myself. And so when I first met him, it was in a master class at a Music Teachers National Association convention, or it might have been a state convention in New York State. And I just remember this feeling of, I was sitting at the piano playing the Schubert G major, the first movement, which I'm about to play for you. And it was just this feeling of this holiness next to me, like the Dalai Lama of piano or something. It's just, he had this way about him. If you ever saw him, or if you in a performance or heard, it was like every note meant something and every word he said meant something. So while I don't remember details of what he taught me, there's always one really profound thing that I remember from each time I played for him. And with the Schubert, in those days, believe it or not, I moved around the keyboard like crazy. I would go in circles. I'd practically fall off the bench. I just didn't mean to, but I did it. And he was all about staying still. And I remember him touching my shoulder to get me to stay still. I saw him in masterclass where he actually held students' heads to get them to stay still. Because his theory was that you hear better when you're staying still. It changes the sound waves when you're moving. And I believe that to be true. And also, it's, as I've matured as a pianist, I love pianists who stay still. I've studied, Earl Wild was, my teacher at Juilliard. He just produced all the sound and he didn't even move. And I don't tend to be drawn to theatrical piano playing. And I really like the simpleness of that style that he taught. So that's what I learned from him in the G major. Also, rhythm. So he was known to say music consists of music, harmony, and rhythm. And of those three things, rhythm is the most important. So there's almost no better piece to represent that with the Schubert G major. And is he instilled in me, and in all his teachings through all his master classes I went to, he was always about the internal rhythm and feeling the beat. And I feel like I've taught that, really tried to emulate that and teach that to my students. And so in the Schubert G major, the statement that resounds with me is that he's very famous for it's so simple, but it's so profound, which is play every note as late as you possibly can without being too late. And I'm going to do my best to represent that in the first movement of the Schubert G major sonata. Thank you. And Candy's listening. Thank you. I hope I didn't move too much. Thanks for the hearts. I love that piece. I hope I didn't move too much. I hope I instilled a steady beat and did all the things that Leon Fleisher taught me. I will tell you, I learned that in graduate school. It's my first big Schubert Sonata, and then I did the big A major. So this is the fourth to the last Schubert, and then the last three are really, really deep, bigger works. And Leon Fleisher was very famous for doing the final Schubert Sonata, the B-flat Sonata. Thank you so much for all the hearts. I didn't develop a taste for Schubert till later in life. So till I was probably about 20 or so. Well, it was this piece. I heard Claude Frank do it, and I just fell in love with Schubert in a moment. So I know there's a simpleness to it, the way he just in the most subtle ways goes from major to minor without any transition, just does it with the most gorgeous colors. I just love that about his music. And we have some listeners from Hawaii. Hi, Maury and Joe. So great to have you on. And again, I missed you all last week so much. That's why I did that coastal walk at 6 o'clock my time, so that I wouldn't get depressed that I wasn't doing this last week. So moving on to a very significant piece for me. So this is the Chopin Fourth Scherzo. And I had played probably the piece that I would say I most associate with Leon Fleisher in terms of my right hand recovery is the Bach Chaconne that I played 2 weeks ago for left hand, because it was his recording of it that I just fell in love with that piece. And this piece, it's what he taught me, that quote that I mentioned earlier when he says this almost always in all his master classes: play each note as late as you possibly can without being too late. So I had applied that in so much of my slow playing. I think of that. I teach that to all my students. And I'd only thought of it in terms of slower works. The reason this is so significant, and the reason I brought up the Bach Chaconne, so Eric, I don't know if you're with us, Eric Hartwick had mentioned when I played the Bach Chaconne, he said, Lisa, you own that piece. Thank you, Eric. And I started thinking, what other pieces in my lifetime do I feel like I've owned? And the Chopin Fourth Scherzo is one of them. I play this a lot. I study it with John Perry, and I really give him credit for so much of this. And I studied it extensively with him, and I played it so many competitions. I won so many competitions with this piece. But I have not been able to play it since my hand injury 3 years ago, and I ended up with 7 fractures and have since had 4 surgeries. And I had accepted, when I did the All Chopin program 2 months ago, I played the third Scherzo because that's much easier in my hand. The fourth Scherzo I'd given up on. I just said there are certain pieces I'm not going to be able to play, and that's the way it is, and that's okay. I just couldn't reach things. And the reason why this is so challenging for my hand is there's all these grabbing chords. So I'm going to be totally transparent here. I've been working so much for playing piano on extension, which is great, but my flexion needs improvement. It's not very good. This is as much as I can close my hand. So when I work in paraffin wax, and when it is and through passive motion, when it's held, I can close it much tighter, but this finger always bounces back up. So I bring that up because this piece has all these chords that I have to grab. Well, I have trained Gina here. I'm dropping things all the time in real life because of my hand. So I've dropped my keys, I've dropped coffee mugs, I've dropped so many things I can't even tell you. I've trained her to pick up almost everything, including my keys, for me. But she can't pick up the notes for me. So this piece has all of these notes which you have to pick up, because they're double notes which the pianist has to really pick up. You'll hear them. You'll very clearly hear them. That's been the hardest thing for my hand. The second hardest thing for my hand has been fast running notes with big reaches. So you've heard me play the F minor, etude. That's easy for my hand because it's all small, fast finger work. It's all small seconds, small intervals. But when it gets to big intervals, I have to reach for. So what I did this week, starting on Tuesday, I swear this is the truth. I applied Leon Fleischer's principle of, in my practicing of fast music, play everything as slow, or play every note as late as you possibly can without being too late. And I learned how to do that because of his teaching through fast passages. And I played this piece. This is the last private lesson I ever had with him. He was out here in San Francisco playing the Revel piano concerto for left hand only. These are the days I was young. I mean, I push it now, but oh my God, when I think back to what I did. I was in the faculty at Santa Clara University. I had played the Shostakovich Second Piano Concerto with the Santa Clara University Orchestra. Henry Malaconi was conducting. Went out that night, Friday night, went out after the concert with some of the orchestra members and faculty members, had a 9 a.m. lesson the next morning with Leon Fleischer in San Francisco. So I was living in Los Gatos, so it was an hour drive in those days, and had a 9 a.m. lesson that morning that he was playing with San Francisco Symphony on the fourth Scherzo. He taught me something. Here's the one thing I remember from that lesson, which is so basic, and I always tell my students this also. I'm embarrassed that I had ever done this, and I will tell you I've never done it since, which is I started something in the middle of a phrase. That's like talking and starting in the middle of a sentence. You just never do that. You don't play by measures as a pianist. You don't play by lines. You don't play by pages. You play by phrases. That's what's the music. And Leon Fleischer was always he never raised his voice that I know of. He was always so calm, but when something bothered him, he'd get really quiet and sometimes sarcastic a little bit. And he got really quiet, and he let me know that if you're going to be a musician, you never, ever, ever, even in the privacy of your own practice room, start in the middle of a phrase. And I will tell you, I have never, ever done that since. So that was my lesson from that. I'm embarrassed I ever did it because it's so obvious, but I did. Never done it since. So here is the fourth Scherzo. If you've been hanging out with me, you know that my motto is screw perfect, just make music. That's what I'm doing here. There's going to be some wrong notes. There are a few notes I have to leave out, and it just doesn't matter. Leon Fleischer's expression was music is about communicating from the heart to the heart. So I hope this reaches your heart, even if there are some mistakes. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my, that was a lot for my hand. Thank you, Leon Fleisher, because even though I just had one lesson, it wasn't about the lesson I had with him. It was about remembering his quote about when I'm practicing, even fast parts, to play every note as late as you can without being too late. Got me back to this piece, and it makes me wonder what other pieces that I feel like I used to own that I can come back to that I had given up on. So, let's see, one more left-hand piece. I wrote a tribute to Leon. Thank you so much. Hi, Mom. Standing ovation. Trudy Spector's my mother. If you could all say hi to her, that would be great. Oh, that was big. So the next piece is for left hand only. And I'm doing that because my right hand is very tired right now. It's a good kind of tired. It's like a workout tired. So it's actually good. I'm going to, it's a 3-minute work. I am going to read you, because it's kind of it's a story of all of this tonight. I'm going to read you my blog that I wrote, which was in tribute to and memory of Leon Fleisher, and it's called What Would Leon Fleisher Do? So this is also part of my memoir called Left Hand Lemonade. The classical world lost one of its finest this week. I cried when I first read about it in the New York Times. Leon Fleisher, 92, dies, spellbinding pianist with one hand or two. In my early years as a student at Juilliard, I had the honor of playing for Leon Fleisher in a master class and later took some private lessons with this legend. They were transformative. While I appreciated his mystical insights, I hardly paid attention to the emotional challenges he must have undertaken to play music with only one hand. Maturity has taught me compassion in ways I didn't know in my youth. I really didn't appreciate his 30 years of challenges of not being able to play with his right hand in public until I lost use of my right hand after a bad fall caused 7 complicated fractures. 3 years felt like an eternity in my right hand recovery. I can't imagine what 30 felt like. His recordings of music with one hand, along with his inspiring memoir, My 9 Lives, a memoir of many careers in music, gave me hope during my early stages of right hand recovery. I'm indebted to him forever. During one of my sleepless nights, I came across a New York Times article written after he was able to play again with 2 hands, well after an eventual diagnosis of vocal dystonia. When asked why he could play again with his right hand after over 30 years of trying and being told it was impossible, he said, "Because I always believed that I would." When I attended Fleischer's 90th birthday recital in his hometown of San Francisco 2 years ago, I had a close-up view of his hands at Herbst Theater. I could tell how much his ring finger and pinky, fingers 4 and 5 to pianist, involuntarily curled up while he played. Ironic that I had the exact opposite problem with the same 2 fingers. I couldn't get mine to curl. I watched as he stretched them open before he played the Chopin Nocturne in D-flat so beautifully. I sat in my seat, stretching my same 2 fingers open. Hearing him perform with 1 and 2 hands was breathtaking. The Debussy, Chopin, and Mozart he chose were probably easier on his right hand. Gone were the days of him performing the robust, demanding Brahms D minor concerto. But did he really care? On the large screen during intermission, I read these words. The purpose of music is to communicate from the heart to the heart. That was my reminder to just make music with my heart, no matter what the program or what accommodations I needed to make for my right hand. No matter what I played, if my heart was all in, the music would reach out to the hearts of others. His spirit will be kept alive on my Facebook Live as I ask myself, what would Leon Fleischer do? I'll remember one of his most profound statements, one that I've passed on to all my students. Play every note as late as you possibly can without being too late. Rest in peace, Leon. Somewhere over the rainbow, I hope you're playing your beloved Brahms D minor piano concerto without any physical limitations and your right hand wide open. Play on. So the reason as you can tell, his story is so significant to me was that statement he made. It's been 3 years of my recovery, and I had a health practitioner very early on tell me I would not be playing the piano with my right hand. I didn't stay with that. I found a new health team and found a new hand therapist who said, why wouldn't you play again? And so that story, there were some very dark nights early on. There were many sleepless nights where I listened to when I couldn't sleep, I would turn on his recordings with 1 hand and with 2 hands, and they were so inspiring. And his memoir kept, I would read it in the middle of the night. It just was so helpful to me in my recovery. So I'm indebted to that. So I'm closing with something that brings in my teacher from Juilliard, Orr Wilde, who passed away maybe about 6 or 8 years ago at the age of 94. And it's an arrangement of his that Leon Fleischer played. So it's Embraceable You, the song by Gershwin, rearranged by Earl Wilde, and then recorded by Leon Fleischer. And I'm going to put this on my recording, which I'm working on very soon, called Left Hand Lemonade. And so I'm going to close with the Man I Love by Gershwin, rearranged by Earl Wilde. Thank you. Thank you. Right on time. Thank you for those hearts. It's so fun, you know? I love playing with two hands, but I also really, really love playing with left hand. It's just so much fun. And this is a free service. I've been doing this every week since the end of March, except for last week. And we'll continue it. And thank you so much for the hearts. I'm so grateful you're spending your time here. I'm so appreciative. It's a free service, and I'm also accepting donations. I left a PayPal link. I know so many of you contribute every week. I'm so grateful. And I love doing this. I don't know what's on the program next week. I love the hearts continuing. That's like a standing ovation. This is like fireworks. It's so cool. And I don't know what's on the program, but I will tell you, I am going to start to explore other music that I'd given up on and didn't think my right hand could do. And using this new approach of when I practice it, play everything as late as I can, we'll see. And I thank you for going along with my motto, which is screw perfect and make music. And I'm pretty sure Leon Fleisher would be okay with that too. So I wish you a safe week. I'm gonna just, Gina, they can't see you, so I'm gonna give you a treat. So sit up. Here, sit. So now you can see her. If you saw her on the coastal trail, she was pretty priceless. When she, not even on cue, she put her shoulder on her head on my shoulder. It was so cute. It's on my Facebook page. You can go look at that. That was last week. And I so appreciate your time. Look forward to playing for you next week. I love just spending my time this way. So glad you do too. Good girl. You're such a good girl. And look forward to having you join us next week. And if you're not on my mailing list yet, please join. It's lisaspector.com. I hate to jinx this, but I have about a 0 unsubscribe rate because I put a lot of time into my writing and study of copy for email, so I'm very proud of that. So I think you'll find value in that. Thank you again. Wish you a wonderful week. Thanks for listening.